Castlevania 2: Simon's Quest is a weird, interesting game. Like, look at how this game punishes failure on the player's part. You have 3 lives. When you die, you respawn on the spot, exactly where you left off, and you don't lose any of your heart currency or experience points. There are no checkpoints like you'd find in nearly every other similar game out at the time. In fact, when you lose all your lives and game over, you still respawn exactly where you were. But on game over, you do lose all your hearts and experience. You keep all your hard-earned items though. It's really not that big of a deal. Why is this game so kind to the player? You're given an infinite amount of tries, all the time. Well, when you lose a life or game over, one number that isn't reset is your playtime. And like Metroid, which came out a year before Castlevania 2, a shorter total playtime during one run of the game gets you a better ending. There's your motivation to play the game again, trying to piece together a more efficient path through the whole game. It's interesting then that this ending playtime check is the only real way Castlevania 2 punishes poor play. Anyone who plays it for the first time and likes it enough to see an ending will likely spend a lot of time grinding hearts to purchase every item they see, not to mention wandering around, figuring out where to go and in what order. Castlevania 2 is famously obtuse, right? The steps you need to take to progress in the game are unintuitive at best, just completely arbitrary. This is another aspect that I find curious in conjunction with the overall goal of the game being keeping your in-game playtime as low as you can to see better endings. The path forward being so hard to piece together on your own can be a real sour spot on someone's first playthrough. But the game is telling you it doesn't really care about your first playthrough. That's just the warm-up. Castlevania 2 is its truest, fullest self when the player already knows the steps of how to clear the game. That's when you're on your second or third playthrough of the game, with the goal of seeing one of the 2 better endings. When you know where NPCs are who sell you the items you need, and when you know how much the items cost. There are only 3 endings in Castlevania 2, 2 less than Metroid's 5 endings. For some reason, there's something about this aspect that, at least for me, Castlevania 2 does better than Metroid. I've played through Metroid 2 or 3 times over the years. Great game, but I've never once finished that game and then immediately wanted to go for a faster time and a better ending. In Castlevania 2, the different endings have Dracula or Simon live or die in different combinations, and getting a faster times ending might not give you the combination you expect. The surface-level differences between the first Castlevania and Castlevania 2 are that the first game is a well-designed set of linear action platforming challenges, and the sequel switches it up with its open structure and item-collecting nature. But it goes all the way in, too. Castlevania's replayability can be found in its harder second loop, or further if you want to see the level number in the corner max out at 99. Or you can go for a high score run, or a max score run. These self-set goals are both for players who already like the game a lot. Just beating Dracula and seeing the funny parody credits will be enough for most players. Castlevania 2's equivalent of this is trying to find every item in the game, I suppose, and then going for casual speedruns to try for the different endings. Maybe max out Simon's experience level? I've never felt the need to do that. I've never gotten every item either. The difference in structure in Castlevania 2 goes all the way down, and the funny thing is, it still kind of works. It's a game you can get into if you take the game's systems for what they are, as weird as they are. I played Castlevania 2 for the first time in 2010 on Wii Virtual Console. I was given a 2,000 point Wii points card, and for some reason, I was curious enough to spend $5 whole US on Castlevania 2. That's still not the worst $5 I spent on Wii Virtual Console. I also bought Ice Climber. Charging $5 for Ice Climber is a scam. There were even worse options though. One of my best friends at the time bought Mach Rider. Anyway, I played that version of Castlevania 2 that I spent real money on for maybe half an hour, maybe an hour, and then I bounced off of it. I had already, at this point, played through all of Zelda 1 for the first time, also on Wii Virtual Console. That's a game that really requires you to look up maps, or at very least hints on where to find stuff, but at the time, Castlevania 2 wasn't able to pull me in to the point where I would have wanted to do the same thing. Long story short, I started up Castlevania 2 after work one afternoon in March of 2025, and this time I wanted to see it through. I looked up the locations of items or hints about general progression when I got stuck. There are only 2 really obscure things you have to learn about to finish Castlevania 2, and once you know them, you know them. This sets you up perfectly for your next playthrough, if you catch the bug like I did and want to play it again, achieving a different ending. On my second playthrough, I got the middle ending, finishing the game in less than 14 in-game days. The way Castlevania 2 calculates time is pretty odd, by the way. At the very start of the game, it's noon on day 0, already halfway through the first day. Or the 0th day. On my third playthrough, I managed to get the ending for clearing the game in 7 days or less. That's the thing with this game, putting together a route good enough for a better ending is way more fun than fumbling around or just reading a guide during a first playthrough. What a strange way to design a game, right? I can't recommend anyone play a first playthrough of Castlevania 2, but further playthroughs? That's when the game gets fun. Just to clear this up, in case anyone wants to know where this game came from, Castlevania 2 is the second Castlevania game made by mostly the same team who developed the first Castlevania, with Hitoshi Akamatsu at the helm, the director of Castlevania, Castlevania 2, and later Castlevania 3. Some people might get the impression from quick internet searches that the MSX half-port, half-remake of Castlevania 1, known as Vampire Killer, is the first Castlevania game. If you look up Castlevania 1's release date, it will likely tell you first about the North American 1987 release of Castlevania for NES, and the 1986 release of Vampire Killer for MSX. But to be clear, Castlevania first released for Famicom Disk System in 1986. And more importantly, the very end of the credits of Vampire Killer has a special thanks shout-out to the FC team, meaning the team who made the original Castlevania, which Vampire Killer is based on. Vampire Killer is a pretty weird game in itself. It takes the broad strokes of Castlevania 1 and makes it much more of an exploration and secret hunting action RPG, with stage layouts that loop until you find treasure chests, keys, and the eventual exits. Vampire Killer also has NPC characters who offer items for hearts, making hearts both ammunition, like Castlevania 1, and also currency, exactly like Castlevania 2. So all of this makes a little more sense. Vampire Killer seems to have been the inspiration for many of the drastic changes in Castlevania 2. But no, apparently not. Not exactly. Akamatsu cited a different Konami game for MSX, Nightmare 2: The Maze of Gallius, as the main inspiration for Castlevania 2. Maze of Gallius' gameplay systems do also have quite a bit of overlap, both with Vampire Killer and Castlevania 2. One of the most intriguing things about Castlevania 2 to me is how it comes off as a plainly unfinished game. This game has 5 mansion castle dungeon stages to play through, but only 2 of them have a boss fight at the end. Castlevania 2 only has 3 big boss enemies, and one of them can be skipped outright without consequence. There's just no way the developers didn't intend to include more. Playing the game as it is shows cracks looking into a more feature-rich game, even if only slightly so. It is fascinating from that perspective. For this video, you're not going to believe this, but I played Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest again, to record footage, of course. I ended up getting what I think is my best in-game time, a mid-5-day run. This whole playthrough took only an hour and 15 minutes. I then went ahead and played Dracula 2, Norai no Fuin. The original release of the game for Famicom Disk System. Surprisingly, the game is mostly the same. I played worse, lost my currency due to game overs, had to wait an extra day-night cycle or 2 for shops in town to be open when I needed them, but I still ended up with another best ending run, this one a 6-day time. Here's me holding forward for a third of a second too long and walking straight into a river. And here's me doing it again. Playing this version of the game took me a lot more real-life time, 11 whole minutes more. This playthrough was almost an hour and a half. Being a Famicom Disk System game, there are loads between towns and the overworld areas, the mansion castle dungeon areas, and every once in a while, it even has you eject and flip over the disc to the other side. During my playthrough, I waded through 46 disc loads, which added up to a lovely 9 minutes and 14 seconds of extra real-life time. Sweet. The Famicom Disk System release of this game is an oddity, still, even now. The 2019 Castlevania Anniversary Collection includes the North American releases of Castlevania and Castlevania 2, and a short while after release, it got a major update, adding the Japanese versions of almost every game in the collection. Almost every game, with the exception of Castlevania 2's Japanese version. Dracula 2 was probably only omitted because then the developer M2 would have had to go to the trouble to add Famicom Disk System support to the kind of bad NES emulator they used for that collection. Castlevania 1 made it onto the Japanese version side by way of its much later actual Famicom cartridge release in 1993. M2 just used that version instead of the Famicom Disk System version, which was smart. Playing the NES versions via this collection is not something that I would recommend, especially not on PC, where there are other better options. The visual formatting options aren't great, the colors are a little weird, and to me the worst of it is that the sound is slightly off, something that I especially noticed in the music of Castlevania 1. The NES emulation was never perfect, but this collection is still worth it in my opinion, just for Super Castlevania 4 and Castlevania Bloodlines, especially on console. So, that's what I got for Castlevania 2. If you liked the video, like and subscribe. I will be putting out a video about Castlevania 1, too. Hopefully within 1 year from now. What do you think of Castlevania 2? Did you enjoy walking back and forth, farming the same 2 enemies for occasional heart drops for 5 minutes straight? Every in-game day and night are only 6 minutes, but one thing's for sure, every time you do that, it feels more like 10.